Jeremiah had always cherished his morning walks. They were his daily ritual, a peaceful way to start the day, clear his mind, and let his two dogs, Max and Luna, stretch their legs. Both dogs were gentle giants, well trained, and loved by those who actually took the time to know them. As the sun rose over the manicured lawns of the suburban neighborhood, Jeremiah strolled along the sidewalk, Max on his left, Luna on his right. The air was crisp, birds chirped, and for a moment, life felt perfect. That was until she showed up. Hey! Hey, you! Jeremiah slowed, his grip tightening on the leashes. From the corner of his eye, he saw her, Karen, an overweight blonde woman, marching toward him in a neon-pink tracksuit, a clipboard tucked under one arm. Her face was flushed, her lips pursed in disgust. "I'm talking to you," she barked, stopping just a few feet away. Jeremiah sighed inwardly but kept his composure. "Good morning," he replied, his voice calm. "Don't good morning me," she snapped. "This isn't your neighborhood. I've told the HOA about you before." Jeremiah clenched his jaw but said nothing. Karen jabbed her finger at Max and Luna. "These dogs are aggressive. They shouldn't even be here. You're lowering the standards of this community." It wasn't the first time he'd heard that phrase. It was her go-to when she wanted to make her racist point without actually saying it. "Ma'am, my dogs are leashed and under control," Jeremiah said, forcing patience into his tone. "We're not bothering anyone." Karen's face twisted with rage. "They're a menace. And you, walking around here like you own the place. People like you." "Enough." Jeremiah cut her off, but his voice remained steady. But Karen wasn't done. She yanked her phone from her pocket and began dialing. "I'm calling the police. You're trespassing, and your dogs are dangerous." Jeremiah raised an eyebrow. "This is public property." She ignored him. "Yes, hello? There's a black man in our neighborhood with 2 vicious dogs. They've been leaving messes everywhere, and I feel threatened." Jeremiah's heart pounded, not from fear of the police but from the sheer audacity of her lies. He knew how these calls could go. Still, he stood his ground, gripping Max and Luna's leashes as Karen continued her frantic report. Minutes later, a patrol car arrived. 2 officers stepped out, already familiar with Karen's antics. "Jeremiah," one of them greeted, tired. "Karen again?" Jeremiah nodded. "Same story?" Karen stormed over to them, gesturing wildly. "He's dangerous. His dogs are." "Karen," the officer cut her off. "We've been through this. Jeremiah has every right to walk here." "But—" "No buts. Stop wasting our time." Karen's face turned beet red, but she stormed off without another word. Jeremiah watched her go, the tension in his chest slowly loosening. But he knew this wasn't over. Over the next few weeks, Karen's harassment intensified. Jeremiah could barely make it down the street without her showing up, like clockwork, phone in hand, recording his every move. She'd tail him from a distance, narrating loudly for her camera. "There he goes again," she'd say, her voice dripping with venom. "Letting his mutts ruin our neighborhood. Filthy." Jeremiah tried to ignore her, but it wasn't easy. The constant stream of insults and baseless accusations wore him down. Every day felt like walking through a minefield. She didn't stop at verbal harassment. HOA complaints started flooding in. Jeremiah received notices accusing him of letting his dogs defecate all over the neighborhood without cleaning up. It was laughable. He always carried waste bags and even cleaned up after other dogs, but the letters kept coming. Neighbors noticed but said nothing. They'd glance at him sympathetically but quickly look away, too scared to stand up to Karen. Her power in the neighborhood was undeniable. She'd been on the HOA board for years and wielded that influence like a weapon. One morning, as Jeremiah bent down to scoop up after Max, Karen's voice pierced the air again. "Don't even bother pretending now. I've seen what you do, you just leave it there. Disgusting." He stood up, clutching the waste bag tightly, his patience thinning. "Karen, I'm cleaning up. You see that, right?" She sneered, phone aimed at him. My videos will prove otherwise. Just wait. It was relentless. Jeremiah began to feel the isolation creep in. The streets he once found peaceful now felt hostile. His walks became more about watching his back than enjoying the time with his dogs. But quitting wasn't an option. Jeremiah refused to let Karen win. He knew he needed a plan, something to finally expose her lies and put an end to her harassment for good. Jeremiah sat at his kitchen table, the glow from his laptop reflecting in his tired eyes. His dogs, Max and Luna, dozed peacefully nearby, oblivious to the storm brewing around them. For weeks, Karen's harassment had escalated beyond anything he could have imagined, and despite his efforts to ignore her, it was becoming unbearable. So, he did what anyone would do. He started recording. He'd strapped a small body camera to his chest during his morning walks, documenting every encounter, every insult, and every false accusation. But after hours of footage, nothing seemed damning enough to shut Karen down for good. Until that morning. Jeremiah sipped his coffee, fast-forwarding through a dull section of the video when something odd caught his eye. He rewound it, squinting at the screen. In the corner of the footage, near a neighbor's front yard, a shadowy figure moved between bushes. He paused the video. It was Karen. But what she was doing stopped him cold. There she was, crouched awkwardly on a neighbor's pristine lawn, glancing around like a guilty child. Jeremiah watched in disbelief as she pulled her pants down, squatted, and... "No way," he whispered, his stomach turning. She was defecating. Right there on someone's lawn. And worse? After finishing her vile act, Karen pulled out a dog waste bag, carefully scooping up part of the mess as if her dogs had done it, though she had no dogs with her. Then she tossed the rest into the bushes and strutted off, acting like nothing had happened. Jeremiah slammed his coffee mug down, his hands shaking. Disgust morphed into pure rage. She had been framing him. All those complaints. All the accusations. She had literally been leaving her own waste around the neighborhood to get him in trouble. Jeremiah took a deep breath, forcing himself to think clearly. He couldn't just show this single clip. People like Karen always found a way to deny, twist, or manipulate. He needed more proof. The next day, before his morning walk, Jeremiah installed hidden cameras on his property and coordinated with a few friendly neighbors willing to help. He placed discreet trail cameras along common routes where Karen had accused his dogs of leaving messes. And then he waited. It didn't take long. Within days, he had multiple clips of Karen sneaking out in the early mornings, wearing oversized sunglasses and a hoodie, repeating the same disgusting act on different lawns. Sometimes she even carried a fake dog leash to make it look more authentic. The evidence was undeniable. As Jeremiah watched the footage, a wave of satisfaction washed over him. Finally, he had what he needed, not just to clear his name, but to expose Karen for who she really was. Jeremiah sat at his desk, scrolling through the captured footage, his mind racing with how best to expose Karen. The videos were raw, disturbing, and painfully clear. There was no way she could worm her way out of this. But Jeremiah didn't want to simply hand the footage to the HOA or police. He wanted the truth out in the open for everyone to see. He opened his video editing software and began working. Cut after cut, he crafted a short, undeniable montage of Karen's misdeeds. He included timestamps, slow-motion shots of her sneaking around, and a final freeze frame of her glaring directly into the camera. Caught red-handed. The caption? Caught red-handed, HOA Karen frames innocent dogs. Satisfied, Jeremiah uploaded the video to social media and hit post. At first, there was silence. Then, a notification. Another. And another. Within hours, the video exploded. Comments poured in. This is beyond disgusting. Who even does this? She tried to ruin this man's life over dog poop? Unreal. This Karen needs to be arrested. Immediately. The video made its way to local news outlets, who quickly picked up the story. Headlines splashed across social media. HOA president caught framing neighbor in disgusting scandal. Neighbors who had previously stayed quiet now flooded Jeremiah's inbox with apologies and support. Some admitted they'd suspected Karen of foul play but had been too afraid to speak up. Others shared stories of her bullying tactics, painting a picture of a woman who had terrorized the neighborhood for far too long. Karen, meanwhile, was nowhere to be seen. That afternoon, a local news van pulled up outside Jeremiah's house. A reporter approached, mic in hand. "Jeremiah, how does it feel to finally expose the truth?" He glanced at Max and Luna lounging by the porch. "Relieving. But also sad. No one should have to go through what I did just to walk their dogs in peace." The story spread like wildfire. Karen became infamous overnight. Memes, reaction videos, and commentary flooded the internet. People dubbed her Poopgate Karen, turning her into a laughingstock on a national scale. But Jeremiah knew it wasn't over yet. Humiliation was one thing. Justice was another. Karen's world had crumbled overnight. The viral video of her disgusting antics had destroyed her reputation, not just within the neighborhood, but nationwide. She had become the latest internet meme, dubbed Poopgate Karen, mocked and ridiculed by millions. Her face was everywhere: news outlets, social media, and even late-night comedy shows. But more than the public humiliation, it was the complete loss of control that pushed her over the edge. She had been the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood for years, wielding HOA authority like a weapon. Now, her power was gone, her influence shattered, and her neighbors, those who had once tiptoed around her, openly sneered when she passed. Karen stood in her house, blinds drawn, plotting her next move. Her mind spiraled, jumping from self-pity to white-hot rage. This was Jeremiah's fault. He had exposed her, humiliated her, and now everyone saw her as the villain. In her twisted logic, she convinced herself that she had to fix things. That meant silencing Jeremiah. Jeremiah, unaware of Karen's final unraveling, prepared for his usual morning walk. Despite the media frenzy and attention, he was determined to keep living his life as normal as possible. Max and Luna wagged their tails eagerly, ready for their stroll. The neighborhood felt different now. Neighbors waved at him, some even stopping to chat or apologize for not standing up to Karen sooner. There was a sense of unity in the air, a collective understanding that they had allowed a toxic presence to rule for far too long. But not everyone was ready to let go. As Jeremiah rounded a quiet cul-de-sac, he felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up, a deep, instinctual warning. He tightened his grip on the dog's leashes, eyes scanning the street. "Hey!" the shout echoed. Jeremiah turned. Karen stood across the road, wild-eyed, her blonde hair disheveled. But what made his stomach drop was the taser in her trembling hand. "You ruined my life!" she screamed, her voice cracking under the weight of her rage. "This is your fault!" Jeremiah's heart raced, but he kept his composure. Slowly, he pulled out his phone, hitting record. "Karen, you need to calm down," he said, holding the phone steady. "This isn't the way." But she was beyond reason. She lunged forward, the taser raised. "You think you're a hero? You're nothing! I'm taking back my life!" Max and Luna barked furiously, sensing the danger. Jeremiah backed up, keeping himself between Karen and his dogs. Before she could get close enough to use the taser, voices rang out from nearby. "Stop her!" A group of neighbors, who had been watching from their porches, rushed over. One man tackled Karen from behind, knocking the taser from her hand. It skidded across the pavement, sparking as it landed. Karen thrashed, screaming and crying, but it was over. Moments later, police sirens wailed in the distance. The same officers who had dealt with her countless false 911 calls arrived, this time with a much clearer picture of who Karen really was. Jeremiah showed them the footage on his phone, the entire ambush captured in crystal clear detail. The officers didn't hesitate. Karen was cuffed on the spot, still shrieking about how Jeremiah had set her up. But no one was listening anymore. The fallout from Karen's desperate attack was swift and brutal. She was charged with multiple crimes: harassment, filing false police reports, attempted assault, and even animal endangerment. The viral videos, both of her disgusting framing tactics and her taser attack, became key evidence, leaving no room for her usual denials and manipulations. The HOA wasted no time. In an emergency meeting, they unanimously voted to strip Karen of any authority she once had. It was long overdue, and many board members openly admitted they had let her wield too much power unchecked for too long. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. Jeremiah, for the first time in weeks, felt a sense of peace during his morning walks. Max and Luna pranced along happily, no longer tense or wary. But this time, the walks were different. Neighbors now waved, smiled, and stopped to chat. Some even joined him, walking their own dogs, turning what had once been a battleground into a place of community. "Jeremiah, I'm so sorry we didn't speak up sooner," one elderly neighbor confessed during a walk. "We should have stood with you from the beginning." Jeremiah smiled warmly. "It's never too late to do the right thing." Karen's house soon went up for sale, her life in shambles. No one was sad to see her go. As the moving trucks pulled away weeks later, the neighborhood watched from their porches, not in silence, but in quiet satisfaction that the dark cloud had finally lifted. Justice had been served. Karen's story became a cautionary tale, not just in the neighborhood but across the internet. A reminder that hatred, lies, and cruelty may thrive in the shadows, but they will always be exposed in the light. Jeremiah continued his walks, free from fear, knowing that sometimes, karma really does find its way.